All right, everybody, let's get going. Hello, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Survivor Roysan's Northfield Farm Behind the Scenes podcast. You are watching the 8th episode of the podcast. We're talking about episode 10 of this season of Survivor Roysan, Northfield Farm. This episode is entitled The Story. As always, my name is JJ Moran. I am one of the co-directors and the host of the show. I am joined, like all other weeks, with co-director and executive producer Liam Houghton.
Hello. Thanks for having me, JJ. Very special episode this week.
Indeed, a very special episode. This is kind of our big reveal episode. A lot of thought had gone into this one. We had kind of hinted at it multiple different times throughout the weekend with the campers, just mentioning, just overall the vibes on the farm, and we brought up Survivor Gods a handful of times to the campers, but we had not had a chance to really give them the full story. So this was the intent, was to sit them down on this night, and as they were going into their final stretch of the competition, to really let them know what's good at Northfield Farm.
Yeah, this been doing this close to 10 years, so it felt about time to reveal why we do this Survivor and why it's always at this farm. And it took a lot of getting permission from different agencies and bureaucracy, but they thought that it would help with the containment of the Survivor God. So it was nice to finally reveal the true meaning behind Survivor Roysan.
Yeah, it was a time crunch there for a minute. We hadn't heard back from the BSS, and so right before the season got going, though, we got final word that we were good to disclose the story online, and that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah, really cutting it close. We had all the props made, and the whole season is really structured around this story and this reveal. So if we got a last second no, it would have really kind of skewed things, but luckily they agreed with us and it was time to reveal it.
Let's talk a little bit about how we felt as though the campers actually took in the story that night. Obviously, we'll get to the challenge, which was a follow-up more or less to the story, as us asking and quizzing them about it the next morning. But that aside, you were there, you were one of the people that was filming this. Obviously, I was the one actually retelling the story to the campers. What was the general vibe that night around the campfire?
Anger. It felt like that we were doing it and keeping them up. That was, I think, the main vibe from most of the people when we showed up. But I think people enjoyed it, I think. But
I remember it to be a pretty 50-50 split of when we walked into camp, and you can kind of hear that on camera of us saying, all right, everybody go out, one more thing, everybody up. You can hear there's a few, oh, sick, this is cool. And then there's a few, what are we doing? Come on. Or and then the one I did feel bad for was Karen had already gone to bed. And so Karen had to get woken up, and then she's sitting next to me the entire time. So she's right next to me on camera. And I don't know how much Karen was loving the story, but again, it was important that we let them know what's going on at Northfield Farm. So anyway, so that was that. Anything else before we kind of jump into the body of the episode?
No, this is important to us and Survivor community. And now that the truth is out there, it feels good. It's a weight off our shoulders, I think.
I agree. And there was actually, I got to, obviously I wanted to make sure that I got the story right. Like Liam mentioned, this is obviously very important to not only Survivor Roysan, but just the history of the community in general. So I wanted to get it right when we got it on camera. So actually when we filmed it that night, that was technically the second time I had told it within that even hour, right before going down and telling the campers. We sat down the people who were at Ponderosa, or for anyone that wanted to listen, I gave a little rehearsal run through of the story then, just to make sure that I got all the details right and everything, because we wanted to, again, capture this very important moment for us on camera correctly. And so anyway, so that night I got to tell that, it's kind of a long-winded story, but got through it with the Ponderosa group, and then kind of we regrouped a little bit as the camera operators and everybody, and then we we rushed him in the middle of the night, and so it was fun. Honestly, I mean, like I felt really. I think weight off your shoulders is a good way to describe how we felt after the story was done.
Yeah. Do you remember what time it was that we
I was
read
just
it?
thinking that actually, I don't really know. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. I think we waited about an hour after, like an hour like fully after dusk. Like
Yeah.
it had been dark, completely pitch dark for at least an hour before we went down there. So probably if I'm guessing around 9:30 or 10.
Yeah. I was gonna say
That
10:30.
sounds right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt late.
I just don't remember doing much between like we said goodnight to them. They all walked back to the camp. And then I remember like we went back into our little production studio. Because not even all of our camera, it was a smaller group of us that actually went down to film the story. It wasn't all of our camera operators and everything. It was just I think four of us that did it. So then I remember it was like that little squad of us regrouped, talked for a few minutes, and then like I said, I ran through the story once with the Ponderosa group. That probably took another 15, 20 before we actually went down there. So yeah, probably 10 at least, 10 earliest.
Yeah. I mean, that just leads into we told the story at 10, and then we went down there to wake him up to film day 3 at 6 in the morning. And when I got
Yeah.
down there, everyone was awake walking around, which was a pretty
Yeah.
big shock for myself.
So let's actually get into it a little bit. We'll transition down to what we saw the next morning, which is chaos and pandemonium and everything going on at the camp.
Yeah, so I got down there, and yeah, you could tell there was a buzz in the air. I thought it was from the story. It's a pretty shocking story to realize what you're actually doing there, but the survivor gods had lit the fire of our campers, and Zach was up all night digging around and looking for that idol that Matt had shared with him the tribal before.
And as Matt would say, one of my survivor mistakes.
Yeah.
He regretted that one kind of quickly, unfortunately for him.
Before we started production, we told them like, "Hey, when we finish filming for the night, you can't find anything, yada yada yada. If you don't find it on camera, it didn't happen." But like true good survivor players, they did not listen to those rules, and the game was always on. So it's hard to be mad when you break that rule, but hey, gamer is always game, I think.
Correct. And also I think that one we were at least halfway convinced someone might end up finding it during the night, knowing that it was going to be that group. It was going to be at least the post merge group to find the one that was in the shed. So we got all the footage of the shed door opening where we hid the note and the shovel, everything. So like we captured that all beforehand because I think honestly in our world we probably assumed that someone was going to try to be going over our head. It was good to stay covered in that category. I mean, like in that way. But yeah, I mean, Zach, uh, as Matt says, Zach, my boy, is a hound dog. He's not being subtle about it yet. And then he's showing the camera his fingernails that have all the dirt in it, and they're finding all the like the areas where he's just like completely dug around the tree and everything at camp. So yeah, no, he wasn't. Unfortunately, Zach did break one of those like essential rules of playing Survivor, which is you got to be at least a little subtle when you're going idol hunting.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Michelle was on it from. It was really. I don't think it portrayed too well in the episode, but it was Michelle and Megan were really on top of it when I showed up in the morning. Megan was sitting there, and I think Megan and Michelle had taken turns kind of sitting by the fire with Zach and Matt, making sure they weren't doing anything too sketchy. But yeah, I like the little confessional of Zach too, being like, "Oh, I faked the stomach thing. I think I'm pretty good." And it's like, not even.
Yeah, I agree with that. That is a funny moment because he says it with such confidence, as if like, "Oh, do you really think your stomach?" Like, yeah, I told everybody that I'm having stomach pains. And that got me away from the camp for a little while. Everyone at the camp was so Zach was doing some weird shit last night. Yeah.
But other than that, it's like what you see is really what you got. Unfortunately, Jen and Karen didn't make too many appearances in this episode, but I think they saw what was going on and just kind of tried to blend into the background. And say no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. But
And they did a great job of that because the Pittman people, it never really was, it never really became a consideration that morning to talk Jen or Karen. It just was like the Pittman five, they, as soon as they felt the fishiness from Zach, or as Matt would say, he put a lot of heat on himself. He put a lot of heat on the two of them. And, it was just, that was all internal heat. That was the five that we've been seeing so strong in these last few episodes. They felt the fishiness coming from Zach, and then they turned and shot when they had their chance.
yeah, I think we got some Vega, Master of Whispers in here too.
Yes.
Hey, like, he was trying to keep Zach low key. Hey, Zach, keep it low key. But then you also see him. Hey, if you guys want to go Zach, I'm cool with going Zach. Are we going Zach? Cool. Okay. So I think that little sequence shows the game Vega has been playing this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is funny when Vega was one of the only ones to actually say that. I guess Matt might have as well, where he was like, you are causing a stir here. Like, you need to know that, like, your stomach bug thing, he didn't say this on camera, but like the stomach bug thing didn't work. People know that you're up to something fishy. Like, what are you doing? And like, it's not looking good for you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, you're right. He really did, playing both sides so that I always come out on top. Sort of move.
Yeah. It was good. It was a fun little sequence. It was filming it in the moment too. It was like, oh my God, this felt like the Idol, like the Y2K Doomsday Preppers before them. The Survivor gods kind of tweaked something and it freaked people out. So
a lot of paranoia running around the farm that morning. Yeah, okay. And then we move on. We send them up to the hill. They're now a tribal council, and that's where they would spend the rest of the episode, both challenge and tribal. We just banged them out. That was how we woke them up that morning. That was how I woke up that morning, actually.
Yeah. I was gonna say, how long, over under 5 minutes, did you wake up before you were asking them questions?
Probably. I think I brushed my teeth, so that alone might have been add an extra minute. So maybe 6 to 7 minutes. I would say I was fully asleep, and then I remember you came in the room. I just remember the door opening, and I was supposed to be like awake and ready to go, and I just remember hearing, what'd you call me? You said something like, charismatic leader. I need my charismatic leader. And I was like, okay. And I just remember I was like one of those things where you're fully asleep and without even really thinking, you're fully vertical and putting pants on, and within a 10-second window. And
I think I woke up at like 3 in the morning and I looked over and you were sitting at the computer watching footage. So I was like, I'll let him sleep as long as humanly possible before.
Yes. That is the way that I remember it was reviewing footage, but it was also making sure that all of the cards had dumped all of their footage, because I knew we weren't gonna, this final day is always, that Sunday is always kind of like a rush to the end, or it feels that way at least. And so, going into the last day, the last thing you want is to have media issues and not have enough space on some of the cards and all this stuff, or to accidentally delete footage from yesterday that we didn't know we hadn't copied over. So I was being a hawk, very vigilant about making sure that we had everything on file and that everything was backed up properly. And so, yeah, I just remember a few painstaking moments where it was like transferring somebody's card over and watching the bubble drop, and then it goes, wait time, 35 minutes until like the full card is transferred. I go, okay, that's another 35 minutes. I have to stay awake. Oh, great. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, it was worth it though, because then production wise, I don't really remember us having many technical issues with the cameras and audio, at least on that Sunday, which when you're rushing towards the finish line, the last thing you want to deal with is anything on that front. So,
yeah, no,
it all worked out. It all worked out. But then, yeah, so we get them up and we send them up to tribal. We're doing the challenge with them, which is just a good old fashioned, we told you a story last night, let's see how much you remember quiz. Megan, if you watch the footage, is one of the people who, at least visually, looks engaged. There were certain people who, like, while the story's going on, they're kind of sitting like this or like zoned out or whatever. Megan was looking at me the whole time, and then she gets every single question wrong.
Yeah, there's some good. August 15th of that was the hardest question, I thought. Like what day? And then you're supposed to
Yeah,
go 3 plus 36. But no, I guess it doesn't really matter. Matt got literally every single question right. So
right.
that was impressive in its own right. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. But
Oh, and then Vega writes BSS at one point, but for the wrong thing. And so
yeah,
then, like, yeah.
Merrimack Madness. Yeah.
And then when the answer is BSS, he writes something else. It was like, oh man. But no, you're right. To your point, Matt got everything right, so it never really was. It's probably one of our least climactic, like, and this person wins. It's like Zach gets the answer, and there's just kind of like a moment of like, okay, all
Yep.
right, Zach, get over here.
Yeah.
You, this was never close. You won. Good job. Um, and then we move on to tribal, and it's one of these things where it's like we already kind of talked about, like, the way that camp life went down is essentially the way tribal went down. Like Zach shot himself in the foot to a certain degree, which is sad.
Yeah. Sometimes a
Um,
Survivor episode works better when the audience is on the in crowd. It was more watching Zach's demise than being blindsided by
yeah,
Zach going home. But there's some good shot. I don't. The way Zach acted after he got voted out, it seemed like he didn't see it coming. But from the way he's looking at everyone and the way everyone else is acting during tribal, it seems pretty obvious that they kind of know what's going down. Like Matt and Megan look pained at what they're about to do.
yeah. There is one moment where he literally says he's like, Zach is like talking to me in this direction, but he's looking at the back of Matt's head. He's like saying, he's like, it's all about the people we trust. And so I think I trust my people. And he's like looking right at Matt. And yeah, I mean, that must have been like, honestly, it's one of these things. We'll see more of the fallout from it at the beginning of next week's episode. But I don't think going to bed the night before, I don't think Matt ever had any intentions of getting rid of Zach this morning. Like they were so tight that point throughout the weekend.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Matt's plan was fully like it'll be more fun to potentially go to the end with a buddy and lose and to like be out there scheming and making moves. Yep. So yeah, it was just I think he did a Matt set and was like, I need to get this smoke off of me. And yep. Moving ahead too in the next like round of confessionals. I guess this is kind of just peek ahead, but Vega was like, oh, it was really hard to vote out my closest ally. And me watching, who's watched every piece of raw footage, watched all the confessionals, putting the episode together was like, when the hell did that happen? When the hell were Zach and Vega the closest allies? So I guess sometimes out there you have stuff going on that even sneaks by the camera. So I guess we can't truly know whatever.
Again, I think that plays a little bit into where Vega. I mean, I know it's interesting hearing Vega say that, but we've been saying it now for, I feel like, in these podcasts for the last few episodes, that it's like Vega's whole game was that he was playing all of these different sides, and I think he probably in his own head saw a bunch of different paths to the end with a bunch of different people, and I think Zach was one of those guys that he had been working with right from the jump from the first day. And so, yeah, Vega probably did, like, I think it's easy from a viewer's perspective to look at it and go like, well, him and Megan are working together a lot. Like it's probably, he probably would have to assume that Megan's his number one. But, I'm sure there's a world in which Vega was like, oh, Zach's doing really well. Him and I could walk to the end together. We could go hand in hand.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Vega too was trying to follow the meat shield strategy of keep these guys in front of them, even though he was the one winning. I think you could still see a world where Zach or Matt get picked off for being challenge threats before Vega does. Just off, even that's like a bigger society perception, even, but that's what Survivor is, a little microcosm.
Yep. And just to now keep the tradition going of at the end of every week, giving a salute to those who played. Zach, who is probably the person I would say at this point in the podcast I have I have, at least I would say we, but I know I have brought up more than any probably other one in any of these other episodes. Zach was played incredibly hard at every challenge. He got so emotionally and mentally invested in the game right from the jump, which is what we ask of all of these contestants. And so, like, someone giving as much heart into this game as he did is, does not go unnoticed on our end. Like, it is very much appreciated for everyone who, like, we put a lot of work into just producing this and making these episodes possible, and yet none of it would happen if we didn't have great contestants coming out and giving it their all. And Zach did that and then some. So anyway, so a big salute to Zach. He did a great job. And he was genuinely devastated right there.
Yeah,
my dad texted me after the episode aired. He went, "Wow, I really feel bad for Zach. He looked crushed." And I was like, he was crushed.
Yeah, and I bet his little end game confessional, I think, is like the second half of, like, we got there, and then it was like, okay, start filming. But yeah. I think if you stayed to the very end, there's a punch in of Zach going, "Oh, I'm pretty devastated right now. I got to go to bed." And I think sleep deprivation was definitely a major factor in everything.
Obviously, he was digging half the night. He did not sleep very much. So, like, if at all, like, I don't know if he went to bed at any point.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that was hard to portray, but he was digging for hours with an S, like at least 4 hours of up looking around. So, yeah, dedicated to the game. And
then what else does he say right at the end in his confessional on the way out? He goes, "I wish I had just dug underneath the thing at the base of Tribal." What? And yeah, he kind of brings up, he goes, "Yeah, I was looking at it, and it's probably under there. Maybe I should have dug there."
That's something filming the confessionals. He was like, I figured it out. You got the cross and this tool, and under it is the OR. And I was like, oh. Yeah. No, I didn't tell him, obviously. But I was like, yeah, no, that's not it. You're overthinking this. You're going 2 steps too far. But yeah. No, it was fun. It was, like Zach brought the energy and I think helped us keep going that weekend.
Totally. Just again at his exit interview, like I'm not laughing at him because, again, the man was so invested in it. But when he's sitting there going, "It would have been so sick if I had just dug under the thing. That would have been sick. Karen would have gone home. It would have been so sick." Like, yeah,
would have been. Zach has contacted us since and said, damn it, I wish I just did the. But
well, who knows?
No battle, because then you're a final 6 and everyone just voted for you. And
yes,
but it would have been fun to see Zach man against the world, I think.
Could have been. All right. I feel like that's a pretty good place to end. We covered the story, covered Zach's downfall. Another exciting episode. It's bananas to say this, but we only have 2 more of these left. 2 more episodes. The next 2 Wednesdays, as always, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. Thank you for following us on this journey this year. We've only got 2 more episodes, 2 more podcasts. Our podcast finale, I think, is going to come out a little later than these other ones have been, but it's going to be kind of a special fun thing. But that's, we'll get to that next week at the end of next week's episode. For the sake of this week, thank you again just for watching. Episode 11 comes out next Wednesday. Again, like, share, subscribe. Please try to get this out to as many people as possible. In only 2 weeks from now, you'll be able to send, if you enjoyed this, you'll be able to send these episodes to your friends and family, and you can tell them just to binge it. All of the episodes will be out. We're that close to it. And so Liam and I have been working really hard this whole summer to get these episodes out. And as we are in the last couple days, we just want to thank you both. Thank you all for engaging
like
and
the view count. Thank you, the 2 people that actually watch and engage. But
we'll call it 24 people that watch and engage. But thank you to all of you people, genuinely. And yes, we hope you have a nice night and a great weekend. And we'll see y'all next week.
Yep. See ya. 2 more to go. End of it.
2 more to go.